Hello and welcome to Talking Live. I'm Dr. Robi Ludwig right here in Starshot Studio in Times Square. Today we are talking with a successful father-son duo of O. Henry Productions. They are going to tell us about how they bring theater to Broadway. They're going to share some secrets with us, and I adore them. They're fabulous. I can't wait for you to meet them. Oliver and Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So tell me, Richard, you are a prominent lawyer. You're very busy.
Thank you.
How did you get involved in producing and investing?
So the short version is that I do have a lot of clients in the entertainment world, and in the entertainment world, New York is Broadway.
Yeah.
Records is new movies are out west. New York is Broadway. So I've known a lot of people for a lot of years. They've always kept pulling on me. Come on, come in, join in. And I always used to think that if you want to make money in Broadway, you have to invest more. That was my initial thought.
Yeah.
And as I started learning, I said, wow, this is really. It's not only is it a lot of fun, but you really can do well with it. So I started coming in. Then I decided to finally invest and produce, and it became a passion and a career.
And you're really good at it, and we'll get into the details later.
Thanks.
So, Oliver, what about you? You went to Lehigh, first of all, right?
No, my sister did.
Oh, your
I went to
sister
Johns
went.
Hopkins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think, is Johns Hopkins an artsy school?
No, it's very
I have to tell you, so I've been like planning for this interview for a really long time. So much so that I actually had a dream about you, Oliver.
Ooh.
And I was interviewing you in my dream, and I was like, no, Lehigh. In my dream, you went to Lehigh.
Well, that was very close.
And, right, close enough. And I was like, Oliver, Lehigh is about math and engineering. How did you get into
Next
producing?
time we'll have the sister and the mom on as well. But yeah, no, it's really not an art school. I mean, I was very involved in the theater community there, but there's not really a big community. Actually, it was after I started a master's degree there.
Oh, okay.
In communications, and it was only like halfway through, or when I was through my first semester there, that I started finding out about this world of producing, and actually that's sort of what got my dad to take the leap on our first few projects was, as he had been pitched show after show, he had said no, and then all of a sudden when I was interested in entering the industry myself, we looked at it in a new perspective. But really what we do at O. Henry is take the science, data, business background that I got at Johns Hopkins and apply it to the arts. And so that's sort of where my background at Johns Hopkins and in research psychology and business at Johns Hopkins folds over into how we work at O. Henry and how.
Gee, they're not too smart in your family, right, Richard? Jeez.
I would have gotten in Johns Hopkins. And what Oliver did at Johns Hopkins, which was somewhat unusual because they don't have a big theater program.
Yeah.
He did everything from the sets to the lighting to directing to writing to you name it, he did it.
Yeah.
So it really got him. He was immersed in theater. Which was really special. It wouldn't have happened at an artsy school.
So do you think that really you encouraged your father to get into this business?
I think it was, we both sort of took each other by the hand and jumped in with both feet. And the way that happened is reflected in sort of the structure of O. Henry Productions.
I hear you're your dad's boss.
Yeah,
that's
well,
what he said.
he's my boss, so I do his web stuff for his law firm. So depending on what day of the week. But yeah, because we entered the industry sort of with me entering as an interest in using it in creating content and creating a business out of content creation and arts consultation, and his interest in investing, we've created a platform where we sort of do it all. And so, our first foray into the world was in 2013. There were 3 or 4 big musicals that were coming into Broadway, and it was the first time that we looked at sort of our options and all the variables that go into each show, and we ended up picking to invest in Kinky Boots over a bunch of other shows
Which
that year.
I'm sure everybody has heard. I was late to the party, and I went with my daughter. We actually have a picture of it. And I texted you because we had such a great time. I
such a
texted
great
you
show.
during the intermission. I was like, we're here. We're having the best time. We have a
That's us,
picture of
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And it's won, how many Tonys? 6?
Won 6.
I'm not good with
It's
numbers.
it's been
Is it
a
more?
while.
That was
You know,
6 times.
if you asked me that year, I would remember. But at this point, you know, it's,
But the important thing is that when we selected Kinky Boots, it sort of was the beginning of
Right.
our philosophy. It was a couple different shows there. There was Macbeth by Ellen Cummings. There was another show called Somewhere in Time, and then Kinky Boots. And when we selected it, it was looking at the landscape and seeing what's out there and saying to ourselves, which show will we have the most fun with, and can we
Yeah.
make a lot of money with?
Right.
And I mean, that show is so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Is
And I
it
want to
not?
show because you were
You
very
and-
humble.
It's you and your daughter.
Yeah, my daughter and me, and she just loved it. And then we analyzed why we thought it was so successful afterwards.
Tell me. Let me hear it.
We
Let's
did.
hear it.
We over dinner we analyzed. We said because it was such a feel good show, and obviously everybody's so talented, but there's a happy ending, and it's a feel good. And
Yeah.
how often do you feel that way in life?
Right.
You know, you don't get that a lot.
Right.
And so it was sophisticated with a happy ending, and people were talented. And listen, I wouldn't be able to figure out what would be successful, but in retrospect, that's what my daughter and I thought. So
Well, but
that was our analysis.
that's a very key element.
Is it? Yeah.
It's feeling good when you leave. It's
Right.
having a theme, and it's being able to associate.
Right.
You can look at someone on the stage and say, "Oh my goodness, that's me. I'm the single woman who can't get the guy,"
Yeah.
which is in the show.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
I'm the guy who's got to work for his father, doesn't want to work.
Right.
There's a lot of you relate
There
to
were
the show.
deep stories,
Yeah,
you're
there really
right,
were.
that were very relatable.
So what's funny is that what we do that's really hard is that what both of you are talking about is really about the story, you know, the artistic narrative, which is so important and it's a focus of everything we do.
Yeah.
What's hard is quantifying that into and being able to say, well, like, right, so there's a narrative about a single woman trying to get the guy. That's great. There are a lot of those in a lot of different shows. Some of them
Right.
are good, some of them aren't, and it's really hard to quantify. And so, what's funny, it's so important, like that, you know, the art is king as far as I'm concerned, and it needs to be good art. And then the question then that we sort of saw after the success of Kinky Boots is, okay, what are some of the quantifiable indications that we had that we were really basing, you know, we were really looking at, but we might not have known it.
Which was sort of what you did preliminarily after the show.
And,
it's the same type of thing, a little deeper, but it's the same
Right.
type of
And
thing.
And just
it's-
so you know, and I know you know this, but this is the kind of show that when you mention it, people have gone more than once.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
They
Oh,
want
my
to go
God.
more than once because it feels good. And I was saying that when I put up the pictures on Facebook, I got so many comments of excitement of people saying, I went, or I just went again. And so people are really happy to share their experience and to think that I know people who, you know, invested in and just knew ahead of time that somehow it would create this kind of happy stir is really incredible.
Yeah.
No,
You
it
talk
really,
about
it
it,
really is.
and I wrote it down because I thought it was kind of like poetry. You write, good art is good business,
Yeah.
and it sounds like that is a focus for the two of
It
you.
is, and you can't, you know, we can't ignore. You walk out of that show and you feel good, but you have to look at the financials. You
Yeah.
have to look at the analytics. You got to look at the data. Where
I
the
don't
show.
look at that, but
I know you don't.
I'm
but-
not.
but-
That's why I'm here.
but that goes into the whole. It's like a whole amalgam of whether or not to jump into a show.
And I just want to say, because I saw this picture on the web, there's a picture of you and a man named Ken. Is it Ken? No. There's a man, let's see. We have a picture.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Ken Davenport, who's one of the producers
and,
of the show.
and I'm going to get this
so
right.
that's me, but
No, I know
but
that's
before.
you. Let's go back to the picture.
You got it. I just saw Ken and
of,
I.
Ken,
Ken.
right.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure I got it right because it said that Rich and Ken who made Kinky Boots possible. So you train people on how to invest, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I just think it's so interesting, and maybe that's where the science comes in, and your business background, which is very interesting in assessing,
Right.
you know, whether it can make dollars. And I still don't really understand how you can put the two together.
Yeah.
Do
It's
not
musicals
easy.
have a better chance of making money?
So
you can answer that first.
yes. Let me make sure I have things reversed. Yes. So you know, right now I'm so far beyond. That was obviously like the first question. I'm blanking right now, but I because again we're just so far down the rabbit hole
let
of
me ask
data.
you
But
another
let me
question
let me
that
let me let me
go
get to
ahead.
that one
It's
though.
33%.
Here's the deal. Musicals by far have a better chance to make money because
Okay.
if you do well on Broadway as a musical, the world wants you. Korea, China, Japan, Australia, they want you. Right now, Kinky Boots was playing in Toronto, playing in London, won awards, playing in Australia, playing in Seoul, Korea, on tour, and the country wants you. So if you do well in New York on
Yeah.
Broadway, and it's a musical, and it's a fun musical.
Now, is it
then-
in another language when it's in Korea?
Yeah, I mean, some productions will translate.
Okay, that
Some
was my
productions-
question.
They translate because they want
right.
the crowd to associate with it.
Right.
But so you don't have that much in a play. Musicals
Uh-huh.
are loved by people. Just are dying for Broadway. So the
Yeah.
answer is yes. Musicals are much more
when they
popular, and they can just blow up more than plays.
Right.
Absolutely.
They can blow up
Yeah,
more,
just
yeah.
so we're clear, the difference between a musical and a play, as you now know,
Yeah.
is that a musical has the music. A
Right.
play is a non-musical
Right.
stage,
And-
which is also can do very well, but musicals definitely.
so this sort of like just to give a little bit of accessible variables that we're looking at. This is one of them, right? Are we looking at a limited run, or are we looking at something that doesn't have an end date inside, planned? Are we looking at a musical or a play? How have these creatives done in the past when they've done things of that nature? Is it a revival? Something that's been on Broadway before and it's coming back.
And you're doing something with Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
Yes.
That is considered a revival.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sweeney is a project that's
great story.
that's downtown at the Barrow Street Theater. It's off Broadway.
Okay.
And that is something that a partner of mine found out in London. It was in an actual pie shop. There were 30 seats in the pie shop, and every night the pie shop would close. The crew would come in, bring in their lights, and they would do a production of Sweeney Todd. And so we've replicated that downtown.
Oh, wow.
So you can go get
it's-
your meat pie
yeah.
before the
So
show.
I can get tickets now.
Absolutely.
All right, and so what we are doing for our Facebook fans and friends is we will make sure that there are links to everything. So if you hear about something and you
Yeah.
want to buy something, please do. We're going to make it easy for you.
Yeah.
You can actually go on to
And if you go to
ohenryproductions.com.
www.ohenryproductions.com,
And we'll have a link to your website as well.
Somewhere on the homepage and certainly on the projects page is just a list of all the things that are currently on sale with links of how to do that. But yeah, so that's great. We have Bill Yossis, who was the Obama administration's pastry chef.
Oh,
Is
wow.
there every night. He makes the pies. You go
Oh,
and
my
you get your
gosh.
pie. The tables are cleared, and
Uh-huh.
then the performance just kind of starts around.
It's a great night.
There's a-
It's
What
a
a
weird
great
show,
concept.
Yeah.
but it's a great night. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's doing really well.
Oh, that's exciting. So will you bring this onto Broadway if it does well off Broadway?
So I mean, it's been running for almost a year now. It's actually Variety just wrote a second article in the past few months about how we're sort of the poster child of commercial off Broadway right now.
Wow.
There are some things that just shouldn't be on a Broadway stage. When you're talking Broadway, it's a very, very specific definition. So it's got to be in a theater of 500 seats or more in what's called the Broadway box, which is basically down here. It's a little further south on between 40th Street and up to 55th, with Lincoln Center being the exception. So there's only 41 theaters in the world that are considered Broadway. This piece, it started as a 30-person audience, and we've expanded it to 130. But it really some pieces just require that intimate setting.
I could see that.
Yeah, so this one's not going because it works so well.
Well, it's smart
now
that
a
you
pie
know
shop.
the difference, and it's
Yeah.
so interesting that there is a difference.
Right. We have one
because-
also that just ended, which is a limited run off Broadway,
Right.
called 100 Days, which was also just a totally out of the box narrative. Oliver can tell you a little more about it, but it's now going to go on tour.
Right.
And it's it's a great show of this couple and their life.
Yeah, so part of that was sort of figuring out how to get a show that the number will tell you that if you put it on Broadway, it wouldn't work. So the question is how does it work? And so we did it at New York Theater Workshop. It just ended at the end of
I think we have a picture
2017.
too of 100 Days
Yeah, that was
somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, there it is. Go back.
There we go.
There it is.
So,
There it is.
so it's an awesome sort of show. So the Bengsons who wrote it, who are those people? It's about they met and got married 3 weeks later. That was 10 years ago. They
True
have a
story.
kid. They have a year-old son now, and it sort of tracks the emotional journey that they went on in order to allow themselves to make such a commitment in such a short time.
After 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
But so it's a really touching story.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really amazing story. We're stay tuned for more information because it will be going around the country.
Now, as far as like investing or what you do producing, do you make a decision about what will take a tour, what plays will take a tour, and what will stay here? I mean, is there a certain philosophy behind that decision as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. The first thing you have to know about Broadway is if you're going to bring a show to Broadway, it is expensive.
Okay.
For a musical, it's going to be a $10 to $15 million raise.
Wow.
Because you got the cast, you have the band, you have the entire theater. It's a lot, and the unions. It's a lot of money. So you have to really, if you're going to commit to that much money and raise that much money, you better be, you want to make sure it works, and it doesn't always. And
was Hamilton off Broadway before they brought it on?
Yeah, it was
Broadway?
not at the public.
Okay.
Hamilton's off Broadway. Always intended to go to Broadway. I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda is a genius, and what he did, within the Heights. It just was brilliant, and so that was sort of expected to go to Broadway. But you have to really, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to make sure that if you're going to Broadway, there's a lot of pressure on you to be successful.
I mean, the tour is interesting because it sort of goes back to what my dad said about what's beautiful about the finances of doing this right is that there are plan Bs, which are either plan Bs or sort of supplements. So, for example, if I've got a show that's killing it on Broadway, killing it off Broadway, I can double down, right? Like Hamilton's a perfect example. As soon as they realized that thing was selling out, every night at crazy prices, by the end of the year there'll be 6 productions of it around the world. It's like, how do we double down as fast as possible? On the other side of the coin, if you have something that didn't quite make it in New York, there's a conversation to be had. Can we make back some of our losses by bringing this to people who wouldn't have been able, who aren't in New York,
right.
But now if we put them in their backyards, who will go see it? And so it's interesting how sort of the subsidiary options and the tours and the foreign productions can be used to either double down on great bets or to offset, bets that weren't as great.
Like licensing, for example. You can get a show which did okay in New York, but there's tremendous licensing opportunities. You can imagine how many theaters there are in the country from your high school show, literally, to your theaters in every single metropolitan area.
Do you think your legal background helps you in terms of understanding investments and how this business works?
I think it helps me, yes. I think it helps me as far as understanding what my sense, my gut is whether or not a show will work, and I think it does. And I think that our collaboration is actually also good because Oliver brings more of the creative than I bring, and so I think the two of us together, it works because Margaritaville is a perfect example. So Escape to Margaritaville.
I love the music, by the way. I posted the music on. You sent me a clip on YouTube. I love the music. Again, it was just happy. It's on my Facebook, and we'll share it with anyone who wants it. And that's going to.
It's down the street.
Broadway.
Yeah, the Marquee.
Broadway,
First day of
the
rehearsals
Marquee.
today.
Oh my God, how exciting! Well, you can bring them back if they want to sing and dance.
Absolutely,
Bring
maybe
them
Jimmy will
here.
come.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, and so the tickets go on sale in February.
No, they're
now.
on
They
sale.
are on
The
sale.
start performance is February 16th.
Oh, okay. It starts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it opens on March 15th.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, the tickets are on sale.
So that looks like a really good one.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. So when Oliver first came to me with it, I am just not a big Jimmy Buffett fan. I never was. I don't know. It just wasn't one of my things. But we did a lot of research into Jimmy Buffett. And Jimmy Buffett, as we know, is a brand. I mean, there are Margaritaville bars and restaurants
everywhere.
and hotels.
Yeah.
And now he has resorts. And
him.
everyone loves him. And
I didn't get that gene.
And
No, I'm
either.
trying to someone else who turns like a line of a song into a $1.2 billion a year industry.
I want
Right?
that gene.
It's
but
unbelievable.
whatever.
And the numbers are 65% of the attendees on Broadway are tourists.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, looking into that show. We looked at the financials, we looked at the cast, we looked at where it's going. And Oliver actually convinced me that we should jump on board and produce that one.
And,
So that's
and that,
another one.
again, that goes back, so that type of show is called the Jukebox Musical, in that the music has been written. It's, it's something if we're still jukebox around, you would be able to plug in.
People sing along, I guess.
Right.
They feel good, they know the music
and
already.
so the story is written to sort of incorporate, like Mamma Mia and Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
And so the other thing you can look at is there are other jukebox musicals in the history of Broadway. Which of the what era what era performers? In other words, like if you look at the year correlating to their Billboard debut, which have succeeded, which haven't. What type of narratives? This is a brand new original story. It's not a. It's maybe loosely based on Jimmy Buffett's sort of vibe and life experience, but it's a new story. Whereas if you look at like Jersey Boys, it's about the creation of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So you can look at narrative structure and time of popularity and figure out where the sweet spot is. And we decided that Jimmy's music sort of.
Wow.
Right, and some of them haven't made it, like
And that does sound like a science.
Oh, it is a
as you
science.
mentioned.
Like
Yeah.
I wish mess his last name. The lead singer lead guitar player and singer from Fish.
Okay.
Did a show 2 years ago called Hands on a Hard Body, which unfortunately did not do well. We
Yeah.
sort of knew it wasn't going to do well. What?
And how did you know it wasn't going to do well?
It was not a jukebox musical, right? Or Sting did one, which was not a jukebox musical.
Right.
He did the
But-
last ship.
Right, his show did not do well.
Did
There's
not
also,
do well.
I mean, there's the what's it called? A Night with Janis Joplin that didn't work. There are again, the point is that there is data out there.
Right.
Do you hear about a new show that's coming out and it's like, oh, that's just not going to work?
Oh, all the
I mean,
time.
all the time.
All the time.
In fact, people will contact me and say, "Listen, I've been asked to invest in whatever. What do you think?" And the 3 last times I was asked, I said no, no, and no.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, if you have a relationship with your producer, whoever's raising money, great. I'm just telling you
Yeah.
that it's not something
And
I
you're
would
good
go
with
into.
being straight.
I'm totally straight.
You're totally
I'm
straight,
totally
but
straight.
you're straight in a nice way.
I'm straight. Thank you.
No, you
but
are.
but I'm straight because it's all about credibility and reputation. And
Right,
so
right.
I told them, and in each of those 3 instances, they all came back to me and said, "I hate to say it, but you were right." And I do it for 2 reasons. One is because it's just who I am. But 2 is then the next time they're going to invest, they're going to say, "You know what? Roths told
Yeah.
us not to do this show,
Yeah.
and maybe I should listen. Let me see what they're doing."
Yeah.
And so they actually have, one of the 3 have come back to us asking what we're investing in and what we're
Yeah.
raising money for and what we're producing, because we sort of feel in those 3 shows, I can tell you what the shows were. One of them was Nerds, which got a theater, never opened. It was a story of
Wow.
Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, which I did not like.
Yeah.
The second was American Psycho, which opened and closed in very quick order. And the third, which actually was around for a while, but the financials were horrific, which Oliver actually pointed out to me, was the Great Comet. The Great Comet with Josh Groban. It was just big names, but the
Yeah.
show got to.
I was
not
going to
do well.
ask too, like, does it? Because every once in a while you'll hear like a major Hollywood actor or actress
Yeah.
being associated with a play, either a musical or a regular play. Does that help guarantee more success?
So the data shows that in a play limited run, yes, the bigger the star, the better. When you originally which is a little bit of the Great Comet issue, and actually we'll talk about the podcast in a second. This is what the second episode of the podcast was about. When you cast a star, so the idea is that if you have a star in an original musical and you want that musical to run, a musical's got to run for on average 12 to 18 months to make its money back. When you have a big star in a brand new musical from day one, it's really hard for the production to brand itself out and promote that the star is in it
right.
without messing
So like a conflict of interest. in
Well,
some
it's just
way?
there's consumer
confusion. Right.
as to whether the brand is right, like Josh Groban or Great Comet in that case. And so what happens is when the star leaves, it's really hard. A big star is not going to give you 18 months. It's really hard to keep it going, and so that's why you see
rebrand it.
things like the brilliance of Chicago that'll
Yeah.
put in another sort of celebrity every few months, or Hedwig and the Angry Inch a few years back, that it was
Yeah.
just star after star after star.
But other shows like How to Succeed in Business,
Right, they did that too.
that
It-
just
it-
died after the star
Well,
left
no, that worked because they kept recasting
for 2 or
stars.
3.
Right. So the idea is, but once you have a star, like once you commit to a star, you need a star. It's why Hamilton has not cast as a star. They don't need it.
They don't need it.
Why?
They're bigger than
why?
the star.
Why conflate their brand
Yeah.
with the Star's brand when they they have a brand to build themselves.
I want to talk a little bit about your philosophy because
Sure.
it's different. So, O. Henry philosophy is about art meeting commerce,
Yeah.
which is what we've been talking about here. And you mentioned 4 points, which I just wrote down, but
Yeah,
you can
sure.
talk about whatever you think is a part of it, the storytelling, the lighting, dialogue, and movement.
Yeah.
And you assess all of these factors when deciding who you're going to invest in.
Right. So yeah, the sort of premise behind O. Henry Productions is to view art and commerce not as sort of two separate things that need to be remedied, but rather like to try to get them on parallel tracks. And so that's why those terms, the storytelling and lighting, are sort of examples that we give on the website of, right. Can we talk about finding product placement like we talk about finding your light, right? Can we bridge the gap between the way we talk about art and the way we talk about commerce? But just so what O. Henry does, I like to describe sort of in 3 sort of categories, and this is what sort of sets us out. The first is strict like consultation. So we have a lot of playwrights or producers or artists who will come to me and say, I'm trying to get the show up, or I'm trying to make the show more producible. What can I do? Or a nonprofit will say, I'm trying to do programming to help artists, develop programming like that. The second and third things are both sort of what we've been talking about. The second is in content creation. So actually seeking out properties, producing them, helping to develop them, and to create new art.
Like from scratch, literally starting anew with a concept to getting an ops on something we've seen that we like.
Now, where I think some of what we do is a little bit different is because I'm so big into the science and the data, it would be a little disingenuous. Like, look, the numbers don't always work out that my show is the best bet on Broadway at any time. And so I'm totally happy to, and for our investors, we do this a lot, to reach across the aisle and get investment shares in other people's products that the numbers say are going to be good. So that's where Kinky Boots comes in, and we did the Nathan Lane play the front page last year, and we're in Hello Dolly, which Bette Midler just left and Bernadette Peters just came in. These are products where you won't see my name anywhere on in the playbill or in the material, but the numbers said they were going to be good bets, and we wanted to place people in them. So that's sort of where that's where the strict numbers, strict financial interest happens. The content creation is really where the bridge of art and commerce happens. Now, of course, if we have equity in a show, whether my name is in the playbill or not, I want to try to help it succeed. But yeah, I mean the basis behind sort of our development is for every business decision to sort of be mirrored by an artistic one.
And what we do is when we are first approached by any show that's already made, number one rule is we have to see it. We could see it in the reading, we could see it, and sometimes they have it on video.
Yeah.
You have to see the show. People throw money at theater without seeing it. And the one beautiful thing about Broadway in particular is that you're able to do that. I can't tell you how many times people came to me as a lawyer saying, listen, I'm investing in a startup computer company. Here's the private placement memorandum. And you get this book and you know what the hell it is. You really know what it is.
Yeah.
Here, you actually sit, and what a reading is the terminology or the presentation. You actually sit.
I've been to some of them.
Have you?
Yeah,
You sit,
have.
you see the entire show, from the very first words to the very last. If they're musicals, it includes the music. It's stripped down, so there's no stage. The cast is wearing their jeans, but you get to see the whole thing. And so you are able to see the product.
Yeah.
And then you say to yourself, wow, is this a product that I really think I can jump into, or is it something I'm running from? And I would say for every one that I jump into, there's probably 9 or 10 that I run from. We run from. But it's good because you really are looking at like hardcore, seeing the hardcore product.
Yeah.
And then you make decisions from there.
Right.
Who was involved in it? What's going on with the cast? Where is the stage? What stage is it at? There's really 3 stages: the developmental stage, the pre-Broadway stage where it goes to a theater somewhere in the country or off Broadway, and then the Broadway stage. So you have to say to yourself, what stage is it in? Do I believe I want to jump into this? Is it good enough? And a lot of the shows you see, just you look at it and say, thank you, but not thank you.
What happens if the two of you don't agree? Because I imagine you agree on a lot, but you guys are different generations,
Yeah,
right?
I
Have
think-
different sensibilities.
I think Escape from Margaritaville, right, which is the one my dad brought up, is a good point of that. Generally, this is how I feel about everything, and it comes from my Johns Hopkins background. Is I just point to the numbers, right? I mean, numbers don't lie. opinions might, say otherwise, but I try to just say, the least biased way to make the decision is looking at the numbers.
No, I think that's right. And then there's a few things. One is the numbers. Two is the reviews. You look at Margaritaville played in the La Jolla Playhouse in La Jolla. I said earlier the 3 stages. It was in its 2nd stage,
Yeah.
and the reviews were really good.
Yeah.
And you also look at the audience buzz. You see people coming out of Kinky Boots.
Yeah.
Before that show was even in New York. It was in Chicago before it was in New York.
Oh, wow.
People come out saying, "Wow, I love it."
Yeah.
And so there are times we don't really agree. I think it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
We try to, if it's something I like that Oliver doesn't, I may go with it myself without Oliver. I may say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this one part of our company, but this will be sort of my project, something he likes. It's his project. It doesn't happen often. It happens.
Yeah.
But we support each other in it. And if there's something that I really like that Oliver says this is not happening, and he points it out to me, I'll go, wow. There are times I'll say, you know what, you're right.
You must feel proud.
I'm very proud.
Too, because,
I'm very proud.
to have a son that you can
know,
rely on in that way.
it's great. It's great. I think what I bring to the table is the wisdom and experience, if you will. Like I've been in business, law, but business for years, right?
For a couple of
For
years.
years.
Yeah.
So I have all that, and I have a lot of clients in the securities industry. I do a lot of entertainment litigation. I do a lot of security stuff. So I know hedge funds, private equity, investment bankers, you name it. I know a lot of people, and so I know sort of the money raise issue, what needs to be done. So it works. It actually is we have a very good symbiotic relationship.
It sounds like a really nice balance. And you talk about just how nice it is to invest in theater, and that there are a lot of perks, and that it's challenging, but it may be another way that people want to place their money.
Yeah, I mean,
which I never thought of it that
So,
way.
so we've been talking numbers. I'll give you some of our hard numbers. So, what's great about theater is that industry average is that 25% of theatrical Broadway investments make their money back. Right now we're at 60%, but at 60%, we're actually recouping 140% of our investment, because the things that succeed on Broadway tend to succeed much more than the things that lose money.
So, for example, if you lose money on 2 shows, but you're making money on Kinky Boots in New York and in London and Australia, it can far exceed.
It makes up
Right.
for
Exactly.
what the losses
We
are.
had a
Exactly.
point where we were we had a profitable portfolio, but 60%, but it was flipped. 60% of the things we were doing were losing. It's just you can only lose so much, and if you got a Kinky Boots, you can gain a whole lot.
Right, and on that note, the 25% number is to actually recoup your investment. And so there are shows where people have gotten back 70, 80%, not great, but they don't lose all their money. There's other shows they lose all their money, and that's what we try to stay far away from.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's yeah. And I mean, our range is like, I think our biggest loss on Broadway was at 52.5% returned, and then our highest gains.
Which we learned from. So that was a show, it was a play called The Realistic Joneses, which was done 4 years ago, and Michael C. Hall, Marissa Tomei, a guy named Tracy Lent, who actually has won a Pulitzer. He's won Tony. He was in Homeland, very well known, and the fourth woman I forgot. Carrie Coon. Phenomenal review, but I didn't.
No. I'm sorry. It was. I'm thinking of the
Australian
other. No,
woman.
it was Tony Collette.
Tony
Carrie Coon is Tracy's Letz's wife, but
Right.
in that show.
It's a great cast, great review from the New York Times, but I didn't put enough time into it to realize I needed more.
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, I will say I still think that was a smart investment. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. That's fair.
You know, we didn't get the Tony nominations we needed on that show. But look, you got to take a risk to make something.
But your point to your earlier point, it is diversification.
Yeah.
You invest in stocks, you invest in
Right.
bonds, and you invest in you name it, different classes. Theater is an alternative investment.
Now,
it
the
really
other thing is, too, I always assume that you need to be very wealthy in order to invest in theater. Is that true? Not
Well,
true?
you don't have to be very wealthy. I would say to you that, you know, if it's your last $25,000, do not put it in theater. I wouldn't put it in stocks for that matter,
Right,
even
okay.
with the market doing what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be extremely wealthy, but you should have a piece of your portfolio. Any smart investment bank, investment banker broker will tell you a piece of your portfolio has to be in alternative investments.
Okay.
Could be 2%, could be 5%, could be 10%. And there's all kinds of alternative investments. There's derivatives, there's oil, there's, you know, you name it. And theater is one of them. It just is something different, and it doesn't necessarily follow the market. If the market starts tanking, you know, people are still going to theater.
Yeah.
So
Even
it's,
with the tickets being really expensive.
Right. Every year
Yeah.
since the recession hit, the theater industry has grown.
How do you explain that?
I think it's the same thing as, I remember like in high school learning about the Great Depression, and entertainment is one of those things that
And
isn't.
especially if it feels good, it's an escape.
Right. I mean, look, you right, because you could think about it as, oh, these are, what are they called? They're expenses that aren't directly for your living.
Frivolous.
Yeah.
variable expenses.
Well, I mean, look, you got.
No, I got it.
I
And
guess
I'm-
like different
If you
things.
have a choice between putting food on the table and going to a show, you're going to put food on
Right,
the table. But
right.
if you're hurting,
Yeah.
but you're putting food on the table, you're going to want to go, take your family out to the theater and just get away from it all.
And also, I think too, when you're going to the theater, you feel artistically stimulated and
Right.
you feel
Right.
intellectually stimulated. So it's
Yeah.
like a feel good on multiple levels because you feel like you're doing something that's important
Right.
for the arts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. And there are, there's a tremendous amount of people that come. I mentioned the number of tourists, but just the people in the New York metropolitan area who go to theater.
Yeah.
There are a tremendous amount.
And
Anyone
once
who
you go, you kind of want to go all the time. I
Yeah.
found that I was doing that. It's like, that I just want to keep going.
And the other thing that's developed over the last few years is that there are ways to get cheaper tickets.
Yeah.
There are different there's one which we're involved in called Today's Ticks,
Oh,
which you
okay.
can actually the day
app,
of the show. It's an app. You can get
You can do
tickets
it
right
in
there.
advance too.
And
A week in
it's-
advance.
So
I
the
think
point.
that's how I got Kiki
Kiki
Boots.
Boots?
Yeah, I
Is
think
it?
I did,
It's on there, yeah. Sweeney's on there.
And so
as
there's
well.
so it's not back in the day you literally had to go to the booth
Right.
to
Right.
buy a ticket. Then came Ticketmaster.
still
Then
do
came
that.
all the StubHubs. What?
You can still do that.
Still do
for anyone
that.
wants-
But then came all the StubHubs and the ticket
Kind of
networks
nice to
and
do it
the.
online though.
Yes,
it's
it
so
is.
easy.
Oh,
It
it's
is.
so easy,
It
and you
was
can
so
pick your
fun.
seat.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was using your app. See?
There you go.
See, I'm
I wish it was
doing
my
it.
app. We invested in it, but the
Whatever.
point
See, I
is
make everything yours.
the
Richard.
point
Yeah.
is it's like anything else in the world. Everything's
Yeah.
more accessible.
Yeah.
And you want to wear jeans now, you can just do it online. You want to
Yeah.
go to a theater, boom, you get online. So that helps with the numbers.
The
Because
accessibility.
people can say, you know what am I doing in 2 weeks of Saturday night? Let me go online and see what there is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because
Yes.
I have my quick 5 questions, but I want to ask you about the O. Henry
Report podcast, yes.
podcast and what you discussed and where people can find
Yeah,
you.
so it's a co-produced between us and BroadwayWorld.com, which you can find either on our website or if you go to BroadwayWorld.com, there's a new industry section, which is a little blue button in the top left right-hand corner of the screen, and we're just on that drop-down. And so we've done.
Can we download it on iTunes?
Yes, oh yes, and you
Okay.
can subscribe on iTunes, just the O. Henry Report podcast, Google Play, wherever you'd like to listen to your podcasts. So what we do is like once a month or so, there's 7 episodes now, maybe 8. We dive into, it's brand new, it started in August. We dive into a different area of Broadway from a business perspective. So we did star casting. How do you star cast? What does the advertiser do once you've star casted? What do you worry about when you
And
star
star casting is
putting a big celebrity into your show?
I'm going to write about you
Yes.
for Bella Magazine because
Great.
we do something online that lets people know what's going on in the
Yeah.
city. So that would be great.
Yeah.
They'd love to hear about you.
Yeah, we just did an episode that we just released last week, an episode on fandom. So how the industry can cultivate the fan experience and use
Nice.
it to benefit the industry more.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking
Yeah.
again. We do quick 5 because I'm, at the end of the day, a therapist, so I have to ask those questions that are slightly
There we
intrusive.
go.
Okay. What's something...
You slightly intrusive? Go
Slightly
ahead.
intrusive. What's something you can do that most people can't? Richard, we'll start with you.
Jeez.
I'll give you
You can
two.
think about
I'll
it
give you
all.
2. Ready?
Okay, yeah.
Play drums,
Okay. Wow.
and we are both black belts in karate.
That's true.
Oh my God.
How's that?
That's actually not true.
No, not
He's
karate.
a little old.
Taekwondo.
now, but yeah, Taekwondo. I
Taekwondo.
gotta bust his balls a little bit.
There you go.
Okay.
There you
Close
go.
enough. I'll never know the difference.
That'll be my answer too.
Okay, okay. How have your strengths helped you to succeed? Oliver, you want to start first?
Yeah, I think, when I was first entering, it all goes back to the same thing we've been talking about. But I always said like I have a real knack for statistical analysis and math, and a passion for theater. So I think
It's
applying,
a great combination.
yeah, and it's
Wow.
something that's really set me apart, or still sets me apart. But I think applying that, not a lot of people in this industry
Yeah.
are like,
No.
yeah, I'm a math guy.
Right.
They're mostly like,
Very rare with someone who's artistic.
right. So my whole thing was applying
That's great.
that to the arts.
Great
So mine,
combination.
ready? Mine is,
Yeah, I'm
someone
almost
said to me
ready.
recently, there's a reason why God gave us one mouth and two ears. And mine is listening.
Yeah.
So you really can learn a lot
Yeah.
by listening to anyone and everything, listening to people coming out of a theater, listening to
Yeah.
people who are in a business meeting, and just sort of filtering what you're hearing
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how that little piece of information can help you. And I think listening is and just listening and filtering
Yeah.
has helped a lot.
And you're
It's helped
ahead
a
of the
lot.
game because a lot of people don't listen. They're too distracted. So
100%.
yeah, that's what definitely sets you apart. What would you do if you were invisible for a day, Richard?
Oh wow.
Oh God, what's this rated?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Oh my goodness, what would I do if I was invisible for a day?
Oliver, do you have something
That's a
that's
toughie.
G-rated? We'll take R.
I mean,
okay.
That's a toughie.
I
I got to give you an answer.
don't.
Go ahead, Oliver.
I mean, I have to. I think this wouldn't be my sort of everyday answer, but just with the political climate, I would be something in Washington, just sitting.
There you
on-
go.
Yes.
That's
Sitting
the
in on
answer.
some sort.
I would.
I would love to be in the room right now where they're negotiating
Yeah.
this the shutdown.
I would
Yes.
like, ready? I would
I
like
could also turn
to
on
have
C-SPAN.
only a day, but I would like to have taken portions of the day and sat in the Oval Office and seeing what goes on there.
Yeah.
Now there's pretty much nobody left that originally started,
Right.
but I would love to have seen,
gonna
just
write
like
something
just
about
like
it.
Fire and Fury, the book that was
Yes.
written. He sat in the Oval Office and took
Wow.
notes. That would be a fun day.
That would
That
be
would
a
be a
fun
fun day.
All right. Who
Good
would
answer.
play you in a movie or a Broadway play
Oh, wow.
Oh,
of
goodness.
your life? Don't worry,
Goodness.
it's almost over.
Who would play me in a movie or a Broadway play of my like? I have been told that I've reminded people of Bob Costas. So maybe I would play him as opposed to him playing me. Although now
Okay.
he's retired. Or he's retired not doing the Olympics. Who would I have to think about that one. Oliver, you know who?
Thought-
I mean,
That's a tough
look, I'm a producer, so I'm thinking about this like purely as like a
Yeah.
casting experiment. I don't think the person looks like me necessarily, but it's just on my mind because I just saw Waitress again, and Christopher Fitzgerald.
I don't know who that is.
He's a Tony nominated actor in Waitress right now, and I just feel like he'd do a good job playing me. So I'd probably give him the role.
All right, now for a family question. What is your favorite family tradition?
Oh my goodness. Rangers games. There you go.
okay.
Yeah. We are very avid New York Rangers fans.
There you go.
And so good answer, Oliver.
Also,
Thank
the
you. I was going to say
Macy's
traveling,
Thanksgiving
but
Parade.
and the Macy's
on
Thanksgiving Day
all
Parade.
but
Well,
3
that's our
years.
tradition.
Yeah,
we
it's
go
all-
every year since he was a little.
You go where?
The Macy's Thanksgiving
nice.
Parade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I would say the Rangers.
Well, that's great. Listen, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming
Yeah.
and joining
So much
me
fun.
here. And I hope we do it again. And please
Absolutely.
come back with anything that you want
will.
to showcase.
Yeah.
Sing yourself, dance yourself, whatever. I can live
that's why I hire people to
vicariously.
do that.
I know. Me too. I live vicariously. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week on Talking Live.
Thank you.